The Fremen are Dune's ultimate defenders. Specters of the sand, blue within blue eyes glow behind veiled faces, and crysknives glint in the shadows. They unnerve outsiders and threaten the harvest of priceless spice. How is it that an overlooked civilization rose from the sand to topple an empire and sweep like a whirlwind over the known universe, buffeting the unworthy with jihad? Fremen are integral to the Dune Saga and the rise of the Atreides Empire. Few know their ways, all fear their myth. But one fact is abundantly clear. To understand the Fremen is to understand Arrakis. To understand Arrakis is to control the known universe. Fremen are the tribal nomads native to Arrakis. They are desert warriors who harness their desolate world and exist largely outside the purview of House Carino's Imperium. Like much of Frank Herbert's work, the Fremen draw inspiration from our own world, especially the Turkic Arabic religious and cultural history of Africa and the Middle East. Fremen share parallels with the Bedouin, pastorally nomadic tribes who've historically inhabited vast tracts of desert within the Arabian Peninsula, the Eastern Mediterranean, and North Africa. Masters of the desert, they are numerous, transient, and accustomed to hardship, much like the Fremen. And similarly, they're fiercely loyal to family lines and weary of outsiders. In fact, the collective title of all Fremen is the Ichwan Bedouin, or the Broad Brotherhood, which is linguistically derived from the Arabic Ikhwan, meaning brothers, and Badawi, meaning desert dwellers. Further parallels are seen in cultural customs. Bedouin uphold values of courage, hospitality, and loyalty to ancestry. A saying goes, "I am against my brother and I against my cousin and I, the stranger." Poetry, music, and especially oral tradition are shared between the two peoples as a means of making light of hardship and honoring the lives of forebears. The Fremen Zensunni Buddhist-Islamic religion has evolved over thousands of years, but there are foundational principles that emerge from both Sunni Islam and Zen Buddhism. They draw from Islamic perspectives on the importance of community, the hardships of life as a test for the soul, the belief in an external God who communicates with their followers through prophets. This is married to Zen Buddhist ideas of introspection and internal transcendence. As individuals, Fremen seek simplicity and tranquility. They value only the necessary, know the universe is connected, and are mindful of the present. These seemingly disparate schools of faith are married together through mysticism and prophecy, which creates a robust, intricate religion that runs deep in Fremen culture. Fremen observe the religious period of fasting and prayer derived from ancient Earth's Ramadan, and the spice coffee service harkens to the Ottoman and Arabic cultural emphasis on coffeehouse tradition. On Dune, idleness means death. Fremen are nomadic by necessity, and tribes must outrun powerful Coriolis storms, evade giant sandworms, and skirt rival factions to survive. Only a Fremen sietch offers respite from Arrakis' harsh reality. But movement comes naturally to the desert people, whose collective ancestry is built atop eons of forced migration, exile, and persecution. The Fremen are descendants of the Zensunni Wanderers, a religious sect of Buddhism that established itself in the tumultuous years of the Second and Third Islamic movements, long before House Carino's Imperium, and even before the Butlerian Jihad. Ancient Fremen belief holds that they originated from the planet Poritrin. The third planet of Epsilon Alangu is considered by many Zensunni wanderers as their planet of origin, although clues in their language and mythology show far more ancient planetary roots. Farthest ancestry traces their origins to Earth, specifically a region known as the Nilotic Al-Oraba, an area encompassing the Nile Delta, parts of Africa, and possibly as far afield as the Middle East. But the Zensunni had known only prejudice since their inception. In the Dune Encyclopedia, historians claim a group of 2 million Zensunni were forcibly sent from Old Earth to colonize Poritrin at the Emperor's request for a slave population to till the land. In the expanded Dune, It's believed that Zensunni saw the rise of omnious and thinking machines as a herald of Kralazek, their prophesied end of days, the typhoon struggle at the end of the universe. Their adherents took a pacifistic stance in the war against thinking machines and subsequent Butlerian jihad, choosing to flee violence and prophesied doom rather than partake in it. For this, they were denounced as cowards and condemned to suffer. Conflicting historical accounts feed the dubious origins of the Fremen, but all highlight Zensunni as a marginalized group, forced into a generations-long migration known as the Great Wandering, that led them through universal uncertainty. The first stop in their wanderings, on Poritrin, it was said that the Zensunni relinquished much of their nomadic ways, settling into agriculture on the abundant land, either willingly or used as slave labor for the planet's ruling houses. For hundreds of years they remained, reweaving their customs, their oral tradition, and their mystical practices until most Zensunni forgot their ancient earthly origins and believed themselves to have always been native to Poritrin. As the Lady Jessica undergoes spice agony and has her other memories opened to her, she glimpses the Fremen's time on Poritrin, describing them as a people grown soft with an easy planet, fair game for imperial raiders to harvest and plant human colonies on Bella Tegus and Salusa Secundus. Harsh discrimination eventually pushed them from the planet, and they next landed on Salusa Secundus, homeworld of the Carino dynasty, where they suffered as slaves beneath the ruling house for 9 generations. Bella Tegus, Harmontep, and Rosak were all settled or visited by the Zensunni wanderers. On Rosak, they are believed to have interacted with a toxic wide-spectrum narcotic that awakened the other memories of their Sayadina priestesses, the Zensunni equivalent of a Bene Gesserit postulant. Finally, after millennia of abuse, the wanderers find respite in a peculiar place. More than 10,000 years before the events of Dune, they settle on inhospitable Arrakis. The remote and dangerous world is the sanctuary the weary Zensunni have sought over their long pilgrimage. Its environment protects them from outside threat, and its secrets will be revealed in time. For thousands of years they undergo cultural transformation and become the Fremen of Arrakis. But freedom from persecution comes at significant cost. Arrakis is a world openly hostile to outsiders. Sweltering heat, limited resources, and natural dangers are ever present, and hulking worms that can swallow entire villages lurk beneath open sands. To survive, one must adapt. Fortunately for the Fremen, this trait is woven into their genes. Hardship is one of life's constants. Their ancestral migrations were trials that hardened their Zen acceptance of discomfort and birthed internal resilience. Arrakis presents the greatest challenge they've faced, but it's one they surmount, and Dune adopts them as its children. One word describes Fremen cultural identity: struggle. The individual struggle to survive weighs on every decision. The brutality of Arrakis necessitates mindful, frugal use of energy and resources, an increased dependence on the self, and distrust of the unknown. Water is the most valuable substance to the Fremen, a precious commodity worth more to tribes than its weight in spice. Long days and nights are spent searching, gathering, and competing violently against rivals to secure it. No drop is wasted, no ounce unused. Even the water of the dead is drawn from their blood and recycled by the clan. To negotiate the desiccating sands, moisture-retaining stillsuits conserve body water efficiently, allowing Fremen to survive weeks in the open desert. Water plays a key role in their rituals and religion. It is life, to the Fremen more so than to any other. Fremen, though planet-bound, retain their Zensunni transience. They're organized into nomadic bands of tribal warriors who owe allegiance to a clan chief, called a Naib. Naib, in the Fremen language, means one who has sworn never to be taken alive by the enemy, and each presides over a sietch. The sietch is a communal dwelling, a pocket carved out from rocky escarpments and hidden that offers safety from both the desert and outsiders. A Naib's purpose is to ensure two things for his people: security and water. All he does is in pursuit of these goals. But a Naib's authority isn't absolute. He represents the tribe but doesn't command them, and decisions he makes are after taking counsel from a panel of elders and advisors. Outward strength and self-assurance are tantamount for a Naib, who can be challenged at any time by one who believes him failing in his duties. The Fremen are ghosts of the desert, physically conditioned and masters with their crysknives, ornate daggers fashioned from the tooth of a sandworm. Their hallmark feature is the eyes of Ibad, iridescent blue within blue, consistent with a diet high in spice. Fremen navigate Arrakis' dangerous topography and have developed secret ways of thriving where none can, documented for future generations in the Kitab al-Ibar, the combined survival handbook and religious manual developed by Fremen on Arrakis. Fremen's solitude and independence make them a difficult people to govern, and as their name suggests, they've lived an existence free from imperial jurisdiction. Other than punitive raids and spice harvesting defense, great houses of the Landsraad see Fremen as beneath them, unworthy of their time. The desert tribes speak the language of Arrakis. They walk in an erratic, arrhythmic dance to avoid exciting the attention of sandworms. Beyond this, a well-kept secret is the use of worms for travel. Entire tribes clamber atop large sandworms and ride them to far destinations. They are also the only people in the Imperium who fully understand spice melange, how it's made, and appreciate its connection to the Arrakeen sandworms. Religion permeates tribal culture. The Fremen sect of Zensunni Buddhism has distilled over millennia into a faith dominated by superstition and ritual. The appendix of Dune tells us that the Fremen were a desert people whose entire ancestry was accustomed to hostile landscapes. Mysticism isn't difficult when you survive each second by surmounting open hostility. Central to this is Shai Hulud, the Fremen name for the Arrakis sandworm. To Fremen, the sandworm is the divine manifestation of God who governs time, space, and the universe. Shai Hulud has many transliterations, including Old Man of the Desert, Thing of Eternity, Immortality, all alluding to the sandworm's timeless divinity. Spice and the distilled spice essence, harvested by drowning a juvenile sandworm, are God's gift to the Fremen, and their narcotic effects allow siege communities to engage in mind-altering spice orgies. They experience the Tao, the spiritual oneness of community, and an ordeal that unites past, present, and future. The Tao orgies have a foundation in Taoism, whereby following the way balances individual spirituality with the greater universe. The Zensunni faith is a guiding light for Fremen. It's their strength and preserves them through struggle. But it's also their greatest weakness, one exploited by the Bene Gesserit order. The Sisterhood took interest in Arrakis and the Fremen long ago, a people that, if controlled, offered access to the wealth and power of spice. Fremen vulnerability lies in their mystic superstitions, a cultural flaw quickly penetrated and manipulated by the Sisterhood. They influenced Zensunni belief and Fremen religion through centuries of subtle indoctrination carried out by the Missionaria Protectiva. This planted deeply within Fremen identity a messianic fable, a tale that their chosen one would descend from the heavens, liberate and lead them to paradise. In fact, generations of wild Reverend Mothers number among Fremen elders. In ages past, they infiltrated Fremen communities and propagated the Protectiva's lies. Those who live currently retain the other memories of past Reverend Mothers, and though they are considered wild, still fulfill the Sisterhood's purpose. As a marginalized group, Fremen are viewed with suspicion and treated with disinterest if not outright contempt. They're overlooked as nothing more than barbaric savages that hinder spice harvest. In fact, the houses of the Imperium grossly underestimate how many Fremen actually live on Arrakis. But the Duke Leto of House Atreides sees in them something no one else does: potential. Like the great pressures that forge diamonds, Dune's existential pressure has molded the Fremen into resilient warriors. There is no harsher, more violent landscape in the Imperium. To survive requires stealth, cunning, agility, and strength. In a land permeated by death, they are exceptional killers, unparalleled in melee, even by the crack legions of House Carino's infamous Sardaukar. The Atreides ruled Caladan through sea power. Displaced and defenseless, Leto sought new weapons against the impending treachery of rival House Harkonnen. The greatest of all, he surmises, are the Fremen. Their skills and traits coalesce to create that which the Duke famously observes as desert power. Latent strength, a harmony with nature, ferocity buried by sand and overlooked by the masses, could be stirred into the Empire's mightiest battle force. Though Leto was unable to realize this grand vision himself, the actions of his son instigate a jihad that sees Fremen might unleashed. Religious prophecy, the manipulative Missionaria Protectiva, and the Kwisatz Haderach breeding program all converge when Paul Atreides arrives on Dune. Planted in Fremen religion by the Protectiva is belief in the Mahdi, the Messiah who will save them from struggle and deliver paradise. Mentioned in oral tradition as the Lisan al-Gaib, or voice from the outer world, this Messiah is prophesied to bring water and green to the dunes of Arrakis. Fremen were susceptible to Bene Gesserit machinations, which Lady Jessica directs towards Paul. As the Sisterhood's Kwisatz Haderach, Paul is gifted with prescience and unlocks his genetic past memories. Combining these with his character, Paul grows to fill Fremen legend. He manipulates the tribes, accepted as Muad'Dib, the one who points the way, and the Lisan al-Gaib. Paul stirs unstoppable religious zeal. He sees it in visions as his terrible purpose, a violent future he seeks to avoid but is ultimately resigned to its inevitability. Born from his legend and Fremen prowess, Muad'Dib's jihad begins with the Arrakis revolt. Their skill unmatched, their lethality final, Fremen take by force the imperial throne for Paul. But violence doesn't end here. Irrepressible fanaticism consumes the Imperium and secures his position as emperor. Muad'Dib's jihad is purported to have claimed the lives of 90 billion, sterilized dozens of worlds, and most significantly, it cements in history the legend of Paul Atreides and the skill of his Fremen warriors. For decades, they burn, pillage, conquer in the name of their Messiah. This period marks the height of Fremen culture. Little do they know that their Messiah leads to their ultimate undoing. Paul Atreides' empire initiates transformation of Arrakis from desert to oasis recounted in prophecy. Though they desire ease, adversity is the essence of Fremen culture. To remove hardship invites complacency, and with it, weakness. Their paradise strips them of their Fremen identity. Though Paul doesn't survive long enough to see this transformation realized, his son, the God Emperor Leto II Atreides' 3,500-year reign continues it. Arrakis becomes a green world of forests, rivers, lakes, and fields so long yearned by the Fremen. Their heaven is finally at hand. They can rest in plenty. Soft land, however, yields soft folk. Without the harsh necessity pushed by Dune, without the strict order and self-reliance required on Arrakis, Fremen culture stagnates. This coincides with the gradual replacement of both Fremen and Sardaukar legions with a religious military branch that would more closely suit the God Emperor's needs. Control of Fremen genetics and breeding gives rise to the Fish Speakers, an all-female military force utilized as the God Emperor's peacekeepers and standing army. Remaining Fremen grow lazy and weak. Their practices, predicated on water scarcity, vanish. Fremen culture ultimately declines in the millennia of Leto II's rule. All that remains is a degenerate community preserved by the God Emperor known as Museum Fremen, who toil through hollow tradition on exhibition. Their life and ways are reduced to educational entertainment. Though the time following the God Emperor's death sees desert once more return to Arrakis, the Fremen never quite recover. Some of their ancient mystical traditions remain in the people outside settled societies, but much of their remembered past fades. No longer the warriors of old, no longer the legendary desert nomads, the Fremen are swept into oblivion by the winds of time. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this video on the Fremen of Dune and their history. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on the Fremen, their jihad, and their culture, as well as your own insights and suggestions for future videos in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel, check out the podcast where content is uploaded frequently. I want to thank my amazing supporters over on Patreon who make all of this possible, and I couldn't do it without their fantastic support. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, a great community, written scripts, and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.